Hi, everybody. I'm Tracy Swedlow, and this is Televisionation. I am very, very happy to have the sounds of dogs barking in the distance, always. Max, welcome to the show. Max Kalehoff, who is the VP Marketing and Growth from Realeyes, which is realeyesit.com. Welcome to the show.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm pretty good. My dog is somewhere else in this house, but normally maybe you would hear her barking. So it's always good. It's a good sign of, how positive the world can be. How about you? Where are you? I'm in San Francisco. Where are you?
I'm in Westchester County, New York, in Pelham, bordering New York City. And occasionally there will be a bark, and that's a rescue puppy that we adopted about 3 days ago.
Oh, that's so nice. I see these stories of all the pets are being adopted out of these like SPCA here, right? That's really wonderful. Good for you. Okay, so we want to hear a little bit about Realeyes. This is sort of our first foray into discovering what you guys offer, which is emotional artificial intelligence. And of course, the industry is always interested in better data to understand their content, what to do with it, how to figure out how to monetize that, how to deliver better content to their viewers. So tell me a little bit about perhaps yourself, your purview, and then what Realeyes does. And then we can roll into a demo when you're ready, perhaps. Show us what it does.
Sure. Yeah, sure. I think probably the best way is to go right into demo, but a quick context. Realeyes is a computer vision and a motion AI company. We've been around for a little over 10 years, and we're venture backed by Draper, NTT Docomo, so some of the world's best investors. And we're here to make technology more human. And so our focus is really on the world of emotion detection, and we do that primarily using front-facing cameras. And I'll give you a bit of a technical demo, and then we can go into some of the business applications and some case studies. I'm going to share my screen right now.
Okay.
And just let me know when it comes up for you.
I see it.
Okay, great. So
should I take myself off the screen? I can just take myself off the screen.
Okay, sure. So what we do is tap into a branch of psychology called facial coding, which was pioneered by Paul Ekman in the 1970s and 80s. And what he did was to develop a systematized approach to observing humans' facial cues, naturally occurring movements and expressions on the face to detect emotions. So there's all sorts of ways that this is used, but this is a major branch of psychology. And what Realeyes does is that we noticed that the trend of computer cameras, front-facing computer cameras, showing up on almost every personal computing device. So from mobile phones to tablets to PCs to laptops to kiosks to various interfaces, front-facing cameras are showing up everywhere. They're sort of one of the detection capabilities that enable us to interact with machines. Voice is getting very popular, but what has been sort of stealth and in the background has been the camera. And there's a lot of interesting uses for that. So what Realeyes has done is to basically train machines on how to apply the techniques of facial coding from psychology to detect emotion on humans as they watch video or they interact with mobile or streaming or games. And we've done this through a very large training set, the world's largest training set that we know of that's geared to emotion detection in a marketing use case. And so we've tapped into about 3 million people, psychologists and trained annotators who essentially watch a whole variety of video in different cultures all around the world, and then label the emotions that they observe as they watch people. So what they've essentially done is created essentially 30 million sessions and over 600 million video frames that have been annotated now, detecting the various emotions. And what you see here on this interface, which I'm demoing now, is confusion, contempt, disgust, empathy, happiness, fear, and surprise. So
do you have a setting for a different country? Or, I mean, they can't all be the same emotions across cultures.
Yeah, so there are differences across cultures. And we actually have a big presence not only in the Western world, but also in Asia. And I can confirm that emotions are different in different countries. So developing a training set with annotators in the beginning is very, very important. And also we've made a lot of advancements in our algorithms, which translate the signals from the computer vision into reportable emotions. So Japan is a big market for us. Of course, it's one of the largest advertising markets, and so we have a fairly sizable business there. But 100%, you're exactly right, Tracy. That emotions are different across cultures, and the Japanese smile less, for example. So it is very important to have a training set, as well as we've invested years and years in R&D to have a scalable, precise automation that can do this. So these are the main emotions that are observable from naturally occurring views of a face. And then attention is also another big observation that we've pioneered measurement around. And so I'm going to actually turn it on. I'm going to focus on happiness and then attention. So I'm now looking pretty intently into myself on the video, and so my attention is pretty high. But if I were to take a sip of my drink, or if I were to maybe look away, or maybe my presence in view and camera is not so high, and when I look at myself, I tend to get very self-conscious, and it kind of makes me laugh or smile at myself, and that be detected. And so you're seeing this, basically millisecond by millisecond. And we've developed this so it's unobtrusive. This is not the experience as we measure people in the wild, but this is for demonstration purposes, just to show that this is the idea. So we're not recording video. We're not identifying individuals. There's simply ones and zeros against the different emotions, as well as attention, that are being sent back to us. So,
but why? I mean, this absolutely I could see be used to track specific people and their responses to things, maybe even in the street. But I mean, obviously, this isn't being used for something like that now.
Yeah. Well, there's a different use case or application that's called facial recognition. Mm-hmm. It's commonly used by governments, surveillance, and also very many useful applications as well. If a device can recognize who you are, that can be there can be a lot of benefit to that. But we're very, very much leaning on the side of privacy safe. GDPR sort of set a new standard for us, and we're very much want to be good guys in the any issue around privacy. So no video recording, and if there is any notation of someone's identity, it's something that they fully opt into. And we do not turn cameras on unless there's consent and opt-in. So that's a very, very, very strict guideline that we hold for ourselves. But you might ask, so how do we get this into the wild then? So we have a couple of applications for the tech. One of them is that we measure pre-recorded content or videos, very often ads or movie trailers or TV shows. And essentially a media company or an ad agency or a marketer will upload a video, and they want to know the consumer response. What are the attention levels?
And you have this amazing, looks like pretty easy interface to go do this on a self-service basis, although it's not cheap. I mean, you have to have some money. You have to have a commitment to, you have to be able to make the commitment to that. But it's easy to do. Just upload it to your web-based interface, right? Yep,
very, very simple. And our team walks through the results. We have various dashboards, which I can demonstrate and show some case studies. But yeah, what we do is we will take the video, and then within literally seconds, we have an integration with the largest research responder panels in the world. So we work with companies like Lucid, the same panel responder companies that Nielsen and Ipsos or Kantar use, all the professional market research organizations. Mm-hmm. So we tap into that same pool, and we incentivize responders, different target demographics or different types of people, and then they opt in to participate in an exposure to that video, and then we record the emotions. So it's done over a large sample, and then we deliver reports back. So that's one example. And where we're taking the technology is into not only from fixed video or pre-recorded video or ads or content, movies. We're taking the technology into live gaming, mobile streaming applications. So if you think about, a large video platform provider where you go to share videos or watch videos, or a gaming streaming platform where you watch people play video games like any of the big blockbuster games, or a big sporting event, or streaming movies. Understanding the attention in those contexts is something that's not really well understood. There's a number of proxies that are out there from different companies that detect overt signals like mouse movements or keystrokes. But I can tell you that in my conversation right now, as soon as I turned on this emotion detection app, which I'm demoing now, I have not touched my mouse or my keys. So those sorts of proxy metrics of attention are almost invalid. So when you get into longer form interaction and consumption, particularly video and streaming content, there's not a whole lot out there. So it's an important area where we're investing a lot of R&D and coming out with products actually in the next few months that are offer a cross application or cross property view of actual attention as evidenced by facial coding and computer vision emotion detection. And we're also building analytics that can get deployed into an actual publisher or property on their site or in their app for very, very deep analytics. So if you think of, if you're a publisher, you intuitively know that maybe 20% of your audience is very, very valuable, but you're not monetizing that because you don't have a way to demonstrate to your advertisers or to the media buying agencies that certain audience or certain areas of your site might be orders of magnitude more valuable because people are actually paying close attention. And you can take almost any communications and persuasion model, and attention is the common denominator. If you don't have attention, you can't show your message. If you can't show your message, then you can't persuade. So it's sort of the fundamental, and it's a big area that we're determined to crack open further and help publishers better monetize and create better experiences for their users, and help marketers better create better content that captures and earns attention and enables marketers to invest their media dollars in publishers that have the highest or higher quality attention. So are you advocating for publishers, broadcasters to invite people looking for video online to turn on their cameras somehow to interact with the content that they see, so that you can then turn on this product? Our cameras are both off. You have to switch them back on. Yeah. So are you inviting, do you see what I'm saying? Are you inviting people to study their viewers online at the same time? I mean, this is normally just used for
video content itself. But I think that what you're saying is to to create content or some kind of way to interact with your audience.
Yeah. So, it's a question of what's the incentive for users or for people or audience to participate and turn on their camera to be, not to be tracked, but to, have their emotions detected. So we do it today with pre-recorded content through research responder panels where we incentivize those people that participate. The next phase is we're actually developing a cross-app syndicated ratings tool. So we're developing our own panel. We have our own panel of users who opt in, and we have different ways that we incentivize. We actually even have a wellness app that is about to be released, so people can understand which applications they use on their phones. Wouldn't that be nice to know?
Telemedicine is becoming a very, very important thing right now. So that sounds to me like the perfect application for that.
Yeah, totally. And there's a number of apps that do that. Even Microsoft has has sort of a built-in function in its Office suite where they'll send you a monthly recap of your quality quiet time or working time or your interruptions and distractions. So it's an interesting way to provide people, just as a consumer service, which applications do you dedicate your focus to, not just having them on, but literally giving them your attention and your mental cognition and the energy that it takes. Sitting on Zoom calls all day actually takes a lot of energy from your brain. So knowing that we believe is going to be a more important thing that people want to know. And then the happiness and sadness, your emotion. We're in a state of changing consumer sentiment. So we're monitoring it on a mass and on an aggregate basis, but we think it's something that individuals will be interested in. But when it comes to so that's a panel syndicated panel measurement tool that we're developing. But when it comes to individual sites, like say a big video site or a big gaming site that wishes to get its community to participate, it depends on the community. If you're a gaming site where you have raging fans who are dedicated to making the community better, you're going to have pretty high opt-in rates. Or if you're a gaming community that works on a crediting or a token system, you might incentivize with tokens for participating in having users, say they allow their attention to be detected for a given period of time. And so the opt-in for that for different communities will vary. But we believe that there is a sea change happening right now, which is actually very good for this type of measurement. It lends itself to it. I mentioned earlier that GDPR created a new normal of consenting and opting in, and we are fully abide by that. But there's something else happening right now. Because of quarantine and COVID-19, the new normal is to have your eye on a screen all the time. And not only that, but to have your camera on facing you all the time. And so it's becoming,
I'm looking at my Cyclops.
Exactly.
All day, every day.
So it's becoming a natural behavior that, maybe 5 years ago, people would say, Big Brother. And I think it was the World Health Organization that last year said video games were bad. And now they're reversing course and saying, maybe video games are good because in a state where Zoom education sucks, maybe games can be used to make distance learning something that's very compelling and effective. So we believe it's, we're entering a new sort of societal norm where it will lend itself to the benefits that facial coding can deliver. And you mentioned medical too.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of inbound. We're not as a company, we are an R&D and a core tech company. And we explore other use cases, and right now we're primarily focused on marketing tools, but we get a lot of inquiries about medical, and we're looking at learning, distance learning, the effectiveness of holding attention inside a group call and how the dynamics of that. But you could think about, if you're able to detect emotion, it could be a very, very powerful tool to teach autistic children how to better relate with other folks and recognize, those sorts of different emotions.
I know teachers are really struggling with trying to keep people's attention and detect how they're feeling. And I'm sure all these kids are dealing with very complex environments at home. I'm not saying that we should have a surveillance society at all times, but I'm sure there are use cases where that would be very interesting. So tell me a little bit about the clients. You mentioned a few of them, and then if you so we can understand how the broadcasters are using this, or the agencies, or the television industry, and maybe I think you have some examples from the ad agency business. You said?
Yeah, sure. So we have about 160 clients that range from big media companies to marketers and agencies.
Can you name? Can you name some names?
Yeah, sure. Warner Media is a big one. Lenovo is a big marketer. Expedia and hotels.com. There's almost every holding company has worked with us in some fashion or another. And let's see, Hershey's, P&G has worked with us. And then we've got some companies like Mars. So a lot of the big world-class brand marketers, and then the food chain, the stakeholders that form around them. Whether it be
how we feel eating chocolate.
Yeah, and even getting into politics. I can't say too much about that because they're in an active heat right now, seeking an outcome. But I do have something political that we ran internally that I sponsored as my own study, which I'm prepared to share today. But we also work with some innovative companies like Teads, the mobile advertising experience company. They provide the rich media, very creative, engaging experiences across hundreds of premium sites, and they're essentially a big, powerful tech publisher. And we've innovated with them some really, really cool stuff. We actually worked with them in something we pioneered. We actually discovered that we can predict attention of an ad in a laboratory environment before that ad goes out to different publisher sites or different formats. So by using attention and emotion, we've created an algorithm where we can show it to a panel of 150 responders, and in an hour we get the results back, and we can predict with 90% accuracy the video completion rate of that ad once it gets put on different channels like YouTube or Facebook, or in different formats like 30 seconds or 15 seconds. So it's a really interesting predictive analytics application that came out of this. But that was done in partnership with Teads, and that was largely due to their commitment of doing this at scale. So
do you have any observations about people's attention or their receptiveness to this content across all platforms? Any specific platforms that stand out where people are more involved, more engaged? I mean, you always hear, lean in, lean back for the big screen. But where is our attention most held, on the big screen or on a PC like this? Is it by gender or by age you're seeing more involvement or interest?
Yeah.
Like you have any observations you can throw our way from all of these?
Yeah, well, I can tell you we're going to have a lot more data about that with our syndicated ratings and cross-view measurement, which is coming out. So I'll commit to coming back in 4 or 5 months and sharing that with you. But what I will say is that probably the biggest thing that anybody can really control is the content. The content is what determines whether you earn attention or not. And there was a Nielsen study that was done about a year and a half ago where they looked at 500 different campaigns, and they found that the creative was responsible for half of the sales outcome. It wasn't the media, it wasn't the targeting, it was the content. And the disparity, the range of consumer response that we see against the content, regardless of device, tells us that the main thing that you can control is the content. And for a lot of, there's a, as GDPR has evolved and Google and other companies have really sealed the death of the cookie, the tracking cookie.
I don't know. I have to accept all these cookies with all these sites are constantly demanding. Yeah. I accept. I'm getting tired of it.
Yeah. Well, what it means is that unless you have a logged in user, where they submit a username and log into your service, you're not less and less, who they are. They're becoming more anonymous. And so the industry is going to defer back to targeting based on context. But I think the good news is that in an age where you're losing control of targeting, the fact remains that the greatest way to capture and drive impact is with the content. So focus on the low threshold, the low quality, the low standard of content that exists today in so much advertising. And that is probably the best anecdote that a brand or advertiser has.
What do you mean by low quality content? What do you mean by that?
We see such a disparity of attention and response that indicates and just shows that there's a disparity in the quality and the relevance of content that is served to consumers. And the good news is, though, is that even if you're losing track or losing ability to target an individual person, the good news is there's such a low bar for content that's put out by marketers, by advertisers to consumers, that there's so much upside just on focusing on content. There's a really good study by Havas called the Meaningful Brands Tracker. And what they found is that is almost 2/3 of content that's delivered to consumers, to people, is considered meaningless, is interpreted as meaningless. So that's a lot of crap. And so there's a much higher bar that can be achieved through the quality of the content. And we see some advertisers really perform, and you can see it in the response of happiness it's created, of the attention that endures. And so, it's back to that theme of attention. We think that it's multifaceted, but when you're buying attention, you're buying impressions, or your CPM, you should be looking at where is the attention happening to focus your investment. But at the same time, your content needs to earn the attention when you put it in those vehicles where it's syndicated. So you need to be looking at both where you're paying to have your content syndicated, but start with your content, because there's a lot that can be done to increase the earning power, the attention earning power of the content. And we know that because we see such a radical disparity in the performance on attention earning power across different advertisers and different creatives.
Are you meshing the data that you pull from these experiences for your clients? Or are they meshing social media responses? Because often there are companies out there that will track how people feel based on how they will use social media to respond to programming. Is that, this is a sort of out of left field question perhaps, but it would be, it's an interesting juxtaposition to see how facial recognition matches with social data. Is that part of what you do or not?
Sure. Well, I can answer that from a couple perspectives. So I happen to be on the founding management team of BuzzMetrics, which was acquired by Nielsen, which was the first ever buzz monitoring company, and we actually had the first ever product called TV BuzzMetrics back in 2005, and we looked at sentiment, textual analysis of programming fans, and that's valid. It can yield. It can yield sentiment toward programming. Where emotion detection gets really interesting is that it's similar in a way because it's naturally occurring. Survey research is highly flawed because you have basically a lot of incentives to distort the results. You're asking questions that lead to answers that you want to hear,
and people act out.
You want to hear them.
People act out in social media, right? I mean, it's performative.
Yeah.
Well,
it's qualitative and indicative, but the powerful thing about social media is that it's naturally occurring. You're not prompting somebody with a question and an answer that you want to hear as a researcher. And what we do is very similar, is that we're measuring naturally occurring behavior. Biometrics don't lie. But there are correlations with emotion response and social sharing. So we've actually we've validated that with our data science team on many occasions. So there are certain emotion responses like happiness and attentiveness, which tend to correlate very strongly with social media sharing. So there are links. They're answering different problems. But they are both useful and I think powerful because you're tapping into naturally occurring behaviors versus a survey, which is subject to a lot of bias. But maybe this is a good time. I could show you an example.
My next question. I'd like to see some examples because we're getting close to time here. So I would love to see some visuals, some actual examples. Well, I'm sure we all would, not just me.
I'm going to share my screen again. I'm
going to pull myself off, though.
Okay.
In full screen.
So just confirm you can see?
Yep.
Okay, great. So we're in the age of COVID-19. We've actually noticed that consumer sentiment is shifting, and it's particularly shifted in certain categories like travel and luxury goods. In fact, overall, since COVID was announced as a serious U.S. threat by the CDC on February 25th, consumer response smiles have decreased. Smiles specifically have decreased 32% versus a year ago. And that's especially in response to travel and luxury goods and some other categories. So it's not totally uniform across all categories, but it's very heavily biased and weighted in a few certain industries, which is maybe not surprising, but it does indicate that people are responding differently because of the mood and the state that they're in. And not surprisingly, I think there's been nearly 500 national advertisers that have created messaging, have pivoted their TV advertising to address COVID-19. And we've been actually tackling this in a whole bunch of ways. We've looked at PSAs. Interestingly, PSAs are among the lowest quality, lowest engaging ads, even though it's the most important weapon by the CDC and our public health agencies. We've looked at automotive. Automotive was the first major industry category to respond. I think my hypothesis is that it's because they've got to get people in showrooms every week, and they've got all this paid media they have to fill the time with, so they're investing in the equity till people can come back into the showrooms to buy their cars. But one recent ad which got fairly high acclaim was from Budweiser, which of course is a massive sports sponsor, and there's not many sports going on right now. So they did this ad, and I'll take you through it and give a little bit of diagnosis, but I'm going to play the ad.
For the Blues, the Reds, and the Warriors. The Spuds for the Giants, the Jazz, and the Magic. The Spuds for for the home team.
Okay, so what's going on here? There's a few interesting things. Happiness, we have a tracer line happiness. If you look at the first 6 seconds of the ad, there's fairly minimal happiness detected here across each frame.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the beauty of facial coding, is you can you can thin slice and diagnose a creative frame by frame, which doesn't happen in surveys or in social media. So at second number 6, something
before you go on, how many people were tracked for this? What kind of how large was your panel for this, do you think?
This was about 150 responders, which is so this was a quick rapid test, and in 150 for a top line analysis achieved statistical significance. So, but you've got this, low happiness line happening here. So what's going on in the content? Well, we have images of of a surgeon in an operating room handling blood. We've got Red Cross handling a cart full of blood. We've got healthcare workers in hazmat suits. We've got an Army National Guard probably directing traffic to maybe it's a drive-through COVID testing site. And then you start to see happiness radically increase at second 6 through 10. So what happens? Well, the imagery switches from dire scenes of this sort of medical technicians or frontline workers to happy images of a musician playing a song on his terrace with a saxophone, or a woman painting a beautiful picture, and happiness still increases. What's going on? A quaint, inviting home where the lights are on upstairs. There's a little bit of a cliche. And then a community with the lights on and starting to turn off. And then you see happiness drop. So why is happiness dropping? Well, looks like we've switched attention to a dark, dreary black screen, and people are then forced to use mental cognition to read fine, tiny type where it says it's basically, we're shifting our sports investment to host American Red Cross blood drives at stadiums nationwide. So basically, you're telling people sports are over and stadiums are now turned into blood donation centers. So it gives you, it tells a narrative of what's happening. Now, if you look at attention overlaid negative response on top of that, during those first opening scenes of these dire images, you see negativity really, really skyrocket, much more than happiness. And then when the comforting scenes, you see negativity drop as the happy emotions detected. And then when the lights go dark and you see that black screen with the little text that you have to almost squint to read, you see negativity jump. And then here's the other thing. And if you look at attention, this ad was very powerful, and it had some beautiful sort of peaks and valleys of emotion, really building up. But if this is a common mistake that you see in advertising, is that there'll be a big emotional buildup with all kinds of imagery and scenes. And then when you have the call to action, and this is not really a call to action, but it's sort of the final thought that the advertiser is asking the viewer to remember, attention drops like a cliff. And that often happens when you just interrupt a building sort of scene selection into a black background. And I'll show you another example where that happened. But some other interesting things that this ad just radically resonated with males who are young, and was far less responsive with females and older people. So I'm not privy to their brand brief or what their goals were, but if they were attempting to really resonate with young males, and they nailed it. But it's an interesting narrative that pops out of here. I think they did a really good job of building of this sort of curve of earning attention as the content progressed. And I'll show you another example here. So this is a PAC ad by Priorities USA about Donald Trump. And I'm going to play it with both happy and negative together. And so here we go.
Coronavirus coronavirus. This is their new hoax. We have it totally under control. It's one person coming in from China. One day it's like a miracle, it will disappear. When you have 15 people, and within a couple of days it's going to be down to close to zero, we really think we've done a great job in keeping it down to a minimum. I like this stuff. I really get it. People are surprised that I understand it. No, I don't take responsibility at all. Priorities USA Action is responsible for the content of this ad.
So in this case, you see, if you were to actually filter the audience by political leaning or popularity around Trump, you would see you would see some key patterns around happiness and sadness based on those two different groups. And so that's actually a study that we're working on. We do work with a number of political organizations to on their high stakes messaging. But I want to show you one thing around the attention, which is super interesting. So you see an attention pattern. They did a really good job of earning attention here. And what was cool is that the attention tracer line mirrored almost identically the ticker in the video, the radically increasing curve of deaths due to coronavirus day by day. And then similar to the Budweiser ad we just looked at, you see this massive cliff of attention where the audience is lost. And what happens there?
No, I don't take responsibility at all. Priorities USA Action is responsible.
As soon as
it's basically an ad against Trump and showing you that he has let you down, and so they're telling you that story, right?
Yeah, but at the end where they have their call to action, or sort of their final thought, they go to that black screen, and they immediately lose the audience. They lose the attentiveness of the audience as that black screen comes up. So
you think that says they've lost the audience from that, or they've depressed the audience? I mean, what would be their goal? Although, I mean, our show here isn't necessarily about politics, but it's definitely very interesting to analyze these political ads. But that question is, are you depressing? Do you want to depress your viewers and get them not to vote for Trump, or do you are you upsetting them and turning their are they getting angry with you because the attention is going down? Like, how do you analyze that?
Yeah, well, there's a couple ways to look at it. First of all be truth, we did not segment based on the audience, political affiliation. That's something we often do. But if you're seeking to earn attention because you have a greater propensity to persuade if you can hold attention, it did a pretty good job, and then they blew it at the last 6 seconds. And those are 6 seconds they paid for. However, there's also a technique. You don't see it much in brand advertising. Brand advertising typically tries to leave you with thoughts of happiness, where political, probably more than any other advertising, will try to motivate action through anger. And so, there is, you can postulate on, what's happening there, but what is undeniable is that as the sort of the imagery and the buildup stopped and the black screen comes up, the attention drops off. So, depending on who your audience is and what your goals are, those are some of the mechanics that are interesting that you can dissect, frame by frame, whether you're an advertiser or whether you're a programmer or a media company that's developing content that's trying to capture that attention.
I mean, would you provide analysis on this, or do you provide them observations, or do they just have to sort of make their own observations how this works? How do you synthesize all this data into intelligence?
Yeah, so it depends on the use case. So we have for media people who are in advertising or programming, who are typically rewarded by earning attention. That is a common denominator that they care about. For some use cases where you're trying to really determine the content, where it may be a conditional business, or it might be a condition of, depending on who your audience is, then you'll have clients who will interpret it. We do have a managed service that that works with clients for interpretation, but most cases we're delivering measurement and data that's expressed and reported in a way that's relevant to the problems they're solving.
Well, this has all been a lot to take in. Very interesting. I know we could keep going on, but we're way beyond the initial time that we normally allot, which is great because this is fascinating. I'd love to step more into this environment to see how all of these political ads perform. Just as a consumer or as a news reporter, it'd be fascinating. I'm sure you don't provide that kind of access, but let me know offline if you do. Anyway, thank you so much, Max. I really appreciate it. Is there anything coming up? Any new additions to the platform you can hint to?
Yeah, sure. Well, we're bringing out mainstream the predicted attention metric, which is super exciting. And in early summer, we're going to be rolling out the syndicated attention ratings across mobile applications, which is a first of its kind that exists anywhere. So we're super excited about that, and maybe we can come back and talk about what we see in that when we start producing some data.
All right, that sounds great. Our audience would really love to hear more about that. All right, thank you very much, Max. I appreciate it. And of course, this is Max Kalehoff, who's Vice President of Marketing and Growth at Realeyes, which is realizeit.com.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Max. So great to talk with you. I'm Tracy Swedlow. This is Televisionation. Please contact us if you'd like to be on the show and tell us more about what's happening in your world. Keep safe, stay healthy. Don't get sick. Thank you.